7 is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
WESN.
Well, today is the big day, a big day in the new administration, a big day in our still relatively young country, a big day that will have a tremendous impact on our future. Although we kind of been saying that about, I don't know, the last however many budgets talking points been on the air. And I guess the question is, have we neglected ourselves too much in the last few budgets? Can we rectify the damage now in this new budget? Or was it an inevitability of where we would be and how hard it would be to get out of it? Dare I say that the debate on this budget is probably going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of emotional arguments on both sides, and not necessarily the most detailed of analysis based on as much factual data as possible. Factual data and statistics in this country is not always the easiest thing to get to find. We are still dealing with the fallout of previous world events, and to some extent, some of them are still ongoing and still affecting us. We are directly tied to some of the factors that those things can cause or wreak havoc upon. And now we will have to see if a new group would be able to make better decisions. But better decisions with regards to the budget. In certain things, I would argue they are not making better decisions. In certain things they are. In certain things they are, or at least they are appearing to be. We still have room to hope that they will, but in other things, I'm a little bit more skeptical. So let's hit pause on the budget talk. Let's go to some more practical things. One of the things that I just did not like reading about was the fact that Minister of Defense Wayne Sturge, in a question to ministers or questions to the government, was asked with regards to the reason to terminate the Chief of the Defense Staff. Now, like other things that the government has done, they caused change. They upended the status quo over something that I personally have been speaking out about. I questioned the leadership of the Defense Force, of the various services, the leadership or the oversight from the government's position included, and I was not necessarily sure where the specific problem lay. It could have been at the minister, it could have been at the ministry, it could have been at the Defense Force staff, it could have been at the different heads of service. But I wanted to see something done about the status quo because the status quo wasn't working. And the government did something about the status quo. The issue is not necessarily what they did, but rather, once again, how they did it. And in this case, the how isn't even necessarily how they actually moved on from Darrell Daniel, but rather the subsequent inability to explain the reasoning why. Because again, I said the status quo had issues, but I wasn't sure where exactly the issue was. Now, you're saying, well, the former head of the defense staff, that was where at least some type of issue lay. But what it is, we don't know. Obviously, the government has changed. So by default, there's a new minister overseeing this aspect of national security. But why is it that you now then cannot subsequently explain why is it this gentleman had to be removed? The reason, or sorry, the tool used to not answer the question was Standing Order 27G. A minister may decline to answer a question if, in his opinion, that's interestingly subjective, the publication of the answer would be contrary to the public interest. Now, I'm just going to say something that's going to sound like a fact. It's really an opinion, but how many of you who are truly unbiased will disagree with this premise? If it was a PNM minister, particularly from the last administration, that was asked a question like this and deflected it using a standing order like that, the then opposition UNC would not let us hear the end of it. They would be complaining about such an answer, such a response to such a question till the cows come home. They probably would walk out of Parliament. I mean, they did do that quite a few times before they realized they were doing it too much and it was starting to make them look worse than the government, in my opinion. I'm not entirely sure if that was what their thought process is. That's my speculation. But there was a point in time around 2021, 2022, when it was almost like, what did they walk out for now? Sound familiar? If you have the authority to do a thing and you do something that is as serious as this during a state of emergency and you can't explain it to the public, do not tell me you are striving for transparency and accountability. Because when the PNM did things like this, I said the same things. Because when you do things in the shadows, and in this case, it's rhetorical shadows, I understand. I'm not saying that you went in the dead of night and did whatever you did. But when you don't want to report to the people, because in your opinion, and yes, I get it, depending on what it is you may suspect he did or did not do, it might make the country look bad, it might harm the reputation of service, but at some point, your reputation is already in the dumpster. It's a blazing dumpster fire with regards to our national security apparatus. I don't know if you realize that. I don't think there's anyone that has kept up to date with any sort of current events that would say, oh no, our national security apparatus is spot on, 2 thumbs up, Can't be any better. No, I'm pretty sure there's no one with any amount of awareness, again, this is an opinion, not necessarily an actual statement of fact, unless somebody does a poll of a significant enough size for it to be truly relevant. Who is going to defend our national security position or the status quo that you found? So now you're making changes, you can't explain them. Why? You cannot fall any further than where we've reached. What exactly are you trying to protect? And then there comes the fact that at some point we started to speculate when the PNM did things like this, it was to cover stuff up. It was to cover up their dirty laundry, not anybody else's dirty laundry. And you inherited that environment. You inherited that narrative, not fully, because it's not necessarily started with you per se, although there are those who will still be thinking back to some of the decisions of the partnership and could probably pull out examples. And then people who could pull out examples from Manning's time, and you could keep going down the line if you want. But at the end of the day, that is a motivation that is now almost a stereotype that we apply to our political class. And just because you wear a different shirt with a different logo in a different color is not going to make you immune to that because it looks like what the other guy did. And if it looks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, we're going to assume that it's you know what smells just like the other guys too. And then, of course, there was the whole drama. I swear Parliament has stayed into a schoolyard, but I'll get more into that in a bit. Look, right now, TNT Transparency Institute, they are questioning the whole change of the Anti-Corruption and Investigative Bureau back under the AG's office. And they're basically pointing out the sort of catch-22 and the logic. Well, placing it under the AG creates a clear conflict of interest. In fact, they apparently were one of the groups lobbying it to be under the TTPS. But then they admit it. Similarly, placing it under the Commissioner of Police poses its own conflict of interest, as police officers are no less subject to allegations of corruption and political bias. But they point out, at the end of the day, it's a regressive step. Because how is it? Yes, it didn't work under the TTPS. Why would it be better under the AG? How are you solving the problem? You're basically saying the solution to the previous problem isn't working, so we'll go back to that. The fight against corruption demands an enforcement body that is fully independent, adequately resourced, and completely insulated from political oversight. I mean, there are negatives to something like this being fully realized. There's always a catch. But before we could even think about that, there is, as far as I'm aware, when you really think it through, just about nothing that is truly independent. You are hoping that the individuals will act in a manner that is independent. But while there is nothing necessarily to force them to comply to any sort of political wishes, there is also very little to prevent them from falling in to any sort of political agenda. One of the biggest questions that hasn't really been asked a lot, but it was implied a little bit, is did the predecessor to the Auditor General operate in a different manner to the current Auditor General, one that may or may not bring into question how previous audits were conducted? I don't know. It was interesting how all of a sudden the situation just escalated. It became a problem. But at the end of the day, you couldn't look at what the Auditor General said and said, yeah, she's really blowing things out of proportion. No, yet she had very simple, straightforward concerns. And the government of the day then could not have provided us any explanation to resolve the situation. Rather, they just doubled down on foolishness. So, we are left with how independent could anything really be? Okay, the president appoints them. What? At the recommendation of the government in most cases? And who selects the president? Right now, I guess we have a president from the previous administration, but that's not going to last for 5 years, right? Maybe it will. Maybe it will. But that's not because of the system. That's just because of whatever decision was made in the moment. It will be interesting to see how that works. Because let's take this story with David Lee in a different spin. Now, MP Stuart Young is saying that by keeping Minister David Lee as Minister of Housing, well, he's criticizing the current government. It can never be acceptable for someone on bail to be sitting in our cabinet making decisions for the citizens of TNT. Again, on principle, if that's the stance you take, it kind of erodes the whole concept of innocent until proven guilty, something that even Senator Al-Rawi emphasized when he spoke on the issue initially. But one of the things I did find interesting is, Minister Lee and the businessman who was, I guess, his co-accused, they fell ill and had to be taken to hospital, if my memory is correct. I could be wrong about that. But lo and behold, the man described by police, this is the report, this is how the report is stated. The man described by the police as the main boss in a multi-million-dollar illegal quarrying empire reportedly fell ill hours after his arrest and was allowed to be taken with a police escort to a private hospital. Is this the new thing? Where big money crimes, because, with Minister Lee, we're talking, I think it's over $1 million in tax revenue. Big money crimes will just, oh, well, I will claim illness. And I'll get to, instead of going to prison, I'll go to hospital. I found that very convenient that both of the accused in that potential tax evasion case for the G-Wagon, they both got ill when they were arrested. Oh. I mean, maybe coincidences happen, I don't know. And now this gentleman gets ill. If another minister or opposition MP got arrested, are they going to get ill as they get arrested? If a drug lord miraculously gets arrested, is he going to get ill just after he's arrested? I mean, I guess, I don't know, is it on advice of legal counsel that this is happening? At what point are we going to try to figure out a system that is not riddled with, potentially, loopholes that can be exploited by those who know, or those with enough money to pay those who know? Most of us, we can't afford the expertise to know how to navigate all the loopholes in our society and our legal system. That's unfortunate, right? It's the same stuff, different day. And by stuff, they're usually saying as something else, but I can't say that on live television. It makes me wonder what the budget is going to look like. how creative will it be and how same old it will be. Now that is actually not necessarily a fair criticism to make, because a lot of the recurring expenditure they can't just shut off overnight. But we'll get more into that discussion after this. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WSN. Sean Michael Small. We'll be right back.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger, made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's veggie burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
My mom has been shopping here for the last 15 years. So coming here with her, now I have my own family.
The variety of items, cleanliness of the place, the spaciousness.
My favorite section is household.
My husband loves the hardware section and the auto section. My favorite would be stationery.
Price Club is the low price leading supermarket in TNT.
They are the best. I would recommend Price Club to anybody.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas, and now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
The first budget of a new administration. In many ways, it's not necessarily just a one-year budget. It is potentially up to a 5-year budget, because there will be certain projects and programs which will not be started now and finished now. Take the airport in Tobago. That wasn't something that was started at the beginning of the 2 budgets ago and was basically ended with the budget last year, or started last year and ended this year. There are certain projects that will take a lot of time. In fact, certain projects, they carried over into new administrations. Technically, the airport is still not finished, among other things. And now we get to see what the actual agenda of the current administration is. What do they prioritize? How are they going to get us there? Now, the first thing that I want to point out, the Prime Minister apparently has come out and said or acknowledged that they cannot give everybody everything. And this is something that I personally, I would have wished she said earlier. Maybe not the first press conference that they had after their first post-cabinet at the Red House, but earlier, to manage expectations, to prime people to understand the reality that we're in. Although they are still to some extent sticking with, and this is a little bit paradoxical, when UNC wins, everybody wins, right? Because now she has gone on, she's modified the messaging a little bit by saying, team, we can try, we will try. Well, I mean, fair enough. At the end of the day, you can only do your best. You can only try to solve complex problems, and you don't always succeed, even though the stakes are at the height of failure is not really an option, but there are degrees to failure, I guess you could say. And perfection is something that is usually unattainable when it comes to something as complex as governance. But I do feel as though there is not necessarily, or rather, this could be the hint that there isn't a true vision with regards to moving forward, or at least not a full understanding of what that vision might be. This budget was never going to be able to give everything to everybody. And the proof of that is the last however many P&M budgets. It could not afford everything that everybody wanted. It could not afford everything that everybody needed. So what it seems to me that the previous administration did was, their solution to that conundrum was to just pass out, to divvy up the financial resources as best they could to kind of give us a facsimile of not cutting expenditure in different areas, to make it seem as though the government was still able to deliver just about everything that it is expected to deliver. Now, of course, there was the fuel subsidy reduction and certain other things like that, but there wasn't a lot of wholesale moves in the budget to make drastic changes in how they generally divvied up the goods. Tobago got 4%, certain ministries got 7 billion or 6 billion or 5 billion, and then certain other ministries got 1 billion or didn't even get a figure. Go figure. So now, Dave Tanku, Minister of Finance, who apparently has all the experience in the world, criticizing Colin Imbert's budgets and being the economic advisor to Kamala Bissessar while she was opposition leader, and I think he even said he was an advisor during the last People's Partnership government. I'm not entirely sure. Now, with all that experience, he's going to come and give us this super budget. And there are some things that I'm hearing, I'm wondering, you know, what are they really thinking now? Because, first of all, there's a list of things that they promised. Protecting pension benefits, eliminating taxes on retirement benefits. That's the first part is really where it's going to be tricky. Baseline 10% public service salary increase. That's going to be interesting to see if they could pull that off without getting some opportunity cost or some interesting shock somewhere else. Create 50,000 plus jobs, right, with a targeted job creation. Doesn't necessarily explain any further. I would say this, that potentially might actually be more straightforward than you would think, depending on what type of jobs you're trying to provide. since we have not necessarily reached Great Depression levels of desperation, just throwing infrastructure construction jobs out there is not necessarily going to be as easy of a sell as during the Great Depression for Americans. Although that could be, in theory, a way to get jobs and to do some of the things that economists are saying. Of course, we're not going to be building Hoover dams, so it might not be limited completely to construction per se. Of course, there's other things: reduce food import bill, boost agriculture, crime reduction. Those things will also need some degree of investment. Now, Mr. Tanku was willing to admit, and again, it's important that you say these things up front. Saying things like this after the fact will seem like an excuse, but saying it up front helps manage expectations of the population. He admitted preparing the budget was a challenge, right? He previously assessed and critiqued budgets, and he had plans with regards to what he would do, I would imagine, if he was the Minister of Finance. I now have the opportunity to put those plans and all that experience to good use. This is the but. He said he hadn't thought we're as badly off as we actually are. The intention is to build from wherever we are upwards. And let's not forget that first press conference, I think, reality hit Cabinet in the face, and the Prime Minister had a very genuine reaction to that situation. So now Dave Tanku is coming in and, in a way, reconfirming what I read from that initial post-Cabinet press conference. Things are rough. The question is, with all of the things that they promised, this is where you have the disconnect. When UNC wins, everybody wins. But one of the issues is a specific promise was made for that 10%. And it's not as though the 10% is Mount Everest. But if you don't have legs, a hill might be insurmountable. You understand? The unions might say the 10%, they might think the 10% is not that much. But if we can't walk, if we have to be on a mobility scooter, rocky terrain might be enough to block our path. It doesn't have to be Everest. So one of the things, and I don't necessarily know where this is coming from, it says government sources, right? It's a turnaround package geared towards putting TNT on the road to recovery. And one of the things, though, that it says is reducing the price of fuel. Now, one of the things that was pointed out is the price of fuel, premium and super, was supposed to fluctuate as oil prices fluctuated, which to some extent, or fully, I don't keep track. I just literally try to minimize my gas usage as much as possible. That wasn't really done. So if that's the case, if it was to make the price more responsive to drops in oil prices, to make our price of fuel adjust to that, well, okay. But if it's a case of wanting to pay more subsidy out, I would argue, is that really something that we could afford sustainably? Because the reports are, the expectations are by some economists, and I think even if you read some of the reports with regards to, well, first of all, apparently this budget is going to be $61 to $62 billion. And somehow they want to try to control the deficit. Remember, we need to limit our borrowing, or at least limit our borrowing in so much that it isn't beyond the means that we could afford, because as pointed out by the economists, the credit rating agencies, they're probably looking at this and potentially will downgrade us further. And this is why some of the economists are basically saying it's fine to borrow now because we have revenue shortfalls. We have big budget deficits, not just expected this year, but last year and the year before that. And I can't even remember how bad it was. It might not have been as bad, but still, the year before that and the year before that. We could borrow now still. It's not wrong to borrow now. It's just what are you using the money to do? If it's to deal with recurrent expenditure, that is a losing strategy. It needs to be capital investments in whatever, however, to improve our revenue position, to improve our long-term position. Not reoccurring expenditures that's just going to see the money get flushed down the drain. We need to fight up with regards to that, with regards to the reoccurring expenses that we cannot just put off. I get that, but some of that could be in the form of hard decisions. Is the current government willing to do that? They say they're going to bring back CPEP and URP, but in what form and how? We don't necessarily know how bad the shortfall in the period between the mid-year budget review and now was, or the period between the elections and now was. To some extent, the UNC complained that the previous administration, they underspent. But dare I say, while I might not necessarily agree with the specific reasoning, I do understand at least a little bit why they did so. There just wasn't the money available. You're already blaming them for borrowing so much. Everybody's blaming them from borrowing so much. What do you want them to do, borrow more? But I guess the key is, what did they do with the money? Because right now, it seems that there's too much reoccurring expenditure for a lot of nonsense that does not really add to growth. And by adding to growth, I don't mean, well, we spend more money, so the GDP just grows. No, by adding to growth is we spend money on things that will improve our earning position in the future, and therefore, it will improve growth or increase growth. That's why, again, the economists are saying we need to invest in things to help with exports, with our food import bill, et cetera, manufacturing, food processing, as high-end as we could get it, and across the board in various areas, as much as we could get it. Not borrowing money to pay salaries, borrowing money to pay salary increases. Now, the opposition leader, she is calling for the budget to address social crisis and reignite growth. And here comes one of the rubs. It's going to be an opportunity cost situation between giving out money to those in need, and thereby, how do you define that? And investing into the future for actual long-term sustainable growth. Now, the opposition leader is pointing to things like youth development programs, entrepreneurship, and skills training programs for those to continue. I do wonder, though, usually what I hear about these programs is they're good, and yet we don't really see the impact on society. It seems as though the good outcomes are very anecdotal, limited, and dare I say, statistically speaking, potentially inconsequential. Look at Gates. The positive outcomes on our society and economy due to Gates, it might be numerous, but it still might not be enough to give us a significant change compared to where we would be without Gates. What new business model or business innovation or business, even just business skills to improve pre-existing sectors have we witnessed thanks to Gates? And the opposition leader, she's come out to say, given the country's narrow fiscal space, or I guess I would interpret as limited room to maneuver. Any budgetary goodies offered to citizens will likely be offset by cuts elsewhere. Generally speaking, yes. I do think the goodies that the previous administration gave us sacrificed things like local government allocations or TTPS or TTFS allocations or allocations to some aspects of the Ministry of Health. That's why we had drug shortages. That's why we didn't have enough fire engines. That's why the police at times didn't have enough vehicles, at times had to pay out of pocket to feed the police animals, and probably why it took so long to replace the bulletproof vests, and why apparently there's not enough money to buy the body cameras. That's my interpretation. That's my interpretation of what the commissioner said. So, I said this, I think, 2 budgets ago. I believe it was 2 budgets ago. To get certain things, given our, in the words of the opposition leader, narrow revenue position or narrow fiscal position, we are going to have to give up some things to get some things. Do we want an aggressive change to try to solve the problems, or do we want more defense where we have limited changes to the budget? We don't make too many aggressive moves to try and keep the status quo with regards to whatever programs you might want to keep on, or what have you. Whatever pieces of expenditure, parts of the pie, do you not want to see go away? Because everybody will have their different parts of the pie that they want to keep for themselves. And that's why the Prime Minister, I believe, she basically said, well, we can't give everybody everything. We can't please everybody. But I just wish, or rather I hope, that we get a clear explanation of what the goal is, because I do believe if you level with the people in a responsible manner, in a calm manner, in a detailed manner, in a clear manner, with reasonable and sound logical explanations, and not necessarily a lot of smoke and mirrors and fancy buzzwords to obfuscate the truth and turn things into a political ramage. If you just level with the people, put in the effort to explain it to them properly, thoroughly, but in simple to understand terms for the entire population to get it, they will be willing to bite the bullet, take some bitter medicine now to get us out of where we are. The question is, how willing are you to risk being the next NAR? Courage. Courage is when you're faced with something that might have you afraid, where you're feeling fear. But you're going to face those fears and you're going to push through. It's easy to say you're doing the courageous thing when in reality you're taking the easy way out. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, our media ambassador should be here, so stay tuned. This is Talking About WSN. We'll be right back after this.
The season of lights is bright and tasty with Royal Castle's delightful veggie burger made with a healthy and nutritious patty. It's great on its own or in a combo with one side and a 16-ounce drink. So whether it's lunch, dinner or a snack, Royal Castle's Veggie Burger fits right in with your fasting and festivities. Happy Diwali from Royal Castle.
I had this accident last year, so it is more convenient for me now to move about with the car, so I can move about the lanes properly. Here is the only place I can shop conveniently with my budget. Everything I get it here at a convenient price. I just get specials on butters and whatever, so it will be convenient for me. Their prices is very low compared to other supermarkets. It's a really nice place to shop.
In Hinduism, cow's milk is revered, and from the finest milk comes our ghee. When offered into the sacred fire, cow ghee carries our prayers to the deities, unlike processed vegetable ghee. From your devotion to your delicious dishes, you can trust Anchor Cow Brand Ghee. For all occasions, use the best ghee. Enjoy the best food and delicacies, and have the best Diwali with Anchor Cow Brand Ghee.
Lighting up for Diwali just got simple with the easy-to-use Anand brand wax diyas. They're scientifically engineered to last longer, burn brighter, and keep on lighting. Anand brand wax diyas do not require any prepping or filling and has less spillage and cleanup. These diyas are recommended for outdoor use and can withstand light wind and rain. Plus, they're eco-friendly. Redeem your use cases for cash back. So put some green innovation into your Diwali celebrations with Anand brand wax diyas.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2, match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
There are limitations in all healthcare sectors, correct, not just this country, yes, where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors, yes, and nurses to provide that quality care. We're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, emotional support, yes, that they need, advice. That gap, yes, you are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patients.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
I'm back on talking about WSND Content Capital, and joining me now is our media ambassador from the TTPS. Yes, I know it's budget day. Ooh, big deal, budget day. Woo! But unfortunately, we still need to get certain messages out to the public, because while some of us will be busy with budget day, most people will just want to get the cliff notes while they have to go through their day-to-day how-to-dos. And we have Diwali coming up. We have Christmas coming up not too long after that. All things considered, all the preparation is going to more or less, if you haven't started already, you will be starting soon. So to speak about some safety tips, we have our media ambassador, Christopher Roon.
Yeah,
Morning.
good to hear you, Sean, to your staff and colleagues and to members of the public. Well, today's budget day, hopefully, but it would be expected that the national security will get a bigger budget because we adopted the prison service now. So, you have the...
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because now they split national security, right? So what will the defense force get? So what will the police and prison service get, I guess?
Yeah, so you see how that goes. So, Christmas coming up, Diwali is soon. I think next week, Monday is Diwali, if I'm not mistaken. And we're out here to speak about, shopping safety. This is the time of the year that people start buying curtains for Christmas. The Hindu community preparing themselves by cleaning up home, painting over, shopping, purchasing gifts and whatnot, and preparing themselves for their religious holiday. And of course, persons who shop for Christmas take advantage of the sales as well. From this time, I think curtains are on special from now. So you have a lot more shoppers, not just for Diwali, for the Christmas season from now. And we're seeing persons moving around, and we just wanted them to ensure that they understand to continue to look after their own safety, and anything suspicious, you report it to the police. And then during the the Diwali period, you also have issues of fireworks being utilized by members of the public, right?
This is usually when I believe some of the more infamous cases of personal injury would have happened with Diwali celebrations.
Diwali, New Year's.
All right. So, and this is one of those things where there's even like an issue with regards to defining what a firework is, because I guess now, it was one thing when the law was written, what is a firework?
Right.
But now, new products, new ways to give normal civilians explosives in a way that could potentially be used to harm themselves is ever increasing as the commercial products expand.
Right. Yeah, correct. And the Summary Offences Act speaks to safety when it comes to fireworks and where it could be utilized. So it's not supposed to be utilized in a built-up area. It specifically indicates that. We at the TTPS, we urge members of the public, if you're going to use fireworks, you're supposed to use it in an open area like a savanna and whatnot. And then there's, as you said, as you indicated before, there's a difficulty in differentiating fireworks because you have very little explosive power in some fireworks, as opposed to major explosive power in some fireworks. And you don't want to be on the other side of the law. But what we're asking members of the public to do is, in using fireworks, which is being sold, is that you be considerate to other members of the public. So you have members of the public who are elderly, you have children, and you have the pets that are affected by the use of fireworks, and you should at least be considerate towards them in utilizing fireworks.
I mean, so not only is it a question of noise pollution, so of course there's everyone that has those concerns. One of the things I always found interesting is certain firecrackers, scratcher bombs, whatever, kind of sound similar to firearms going off, right? So there's also that added stress of, and especially now, I guess at the end of the day, it's been reported that there's a spike in murder rates. The assumption will always be that most of it is with guns. A lot of people, and of course, I don't think we have necessarily as a society come down from the vigilance or the concerns that we've had for the last few years, right? So when you're throwing in all of these random things into the mix now that could alarm people who, at the end of the day, guns do not sound like how they do in Hollywood movies on television. They sound similar to these firecrackers.
Correct, So, what members of the public could also do is, if they suspect it's gunfire, fireworks, whatever you believe it is, you still call the 999 service, or you call your local district police, and they will send a patrol over.
Well, one of the things, I don't know if you can answer this question, but you said use it in an open field.
Yeah.
Is there any concern that depending on the firework, because again, they're very different, right? Different levels of explosive power, but also potentially the capacity for the flame to ignite something. Is there any concerns that, okay, we do it on an open field, but we still like light the grass on fire and then it lights a tree on fire and then it might still cause some environmental damage?
Yeah, of course, and you take your safety precautions. You have a fire extinguisher available. The fire service would be on a high alert, of course, around this time of the year, because the fireworks does tend to cause burning, fire damage, and whatnot. So you have fire service on high alert to respond to any reports, because we have had instances where fires have taken place around Diwali, Christmas, New Year's, Independence Time, due to fireworks.
And for those who live in suburban areas where they don't have an open field, now I think like some suburban areas, they will not necessarily next to you, but there will be a field somewhere in the suburb, right? But I think some people might want to, you know, we could be, well, oh gosh, I mean, I don't feel nearby, so like, what's wrong with just shooting it off in the road?
It's absolutely dangerous, because you see injuries not just to property but to persons, because and not from the burning itself, but from the explosiveness of the fireworks, where it damages your fingers and whatnot. We've seen this in the past. Hence the reason they ban scratch bombs.
Right.
But there's still firework type like that come into the country, possibly illegally.
And I guess, okay, you could ban scratch bombs, but then be something like scratch bombs, but aren't actually scratch bombs. That could still...
So you want to be careful when you utilize the fireworks, especially with little children. You know, they're eager to use fireworks. It's an exciting time for them. They go to the diyas, they light it using the diyas. You know, even the one that sparkles, I forgot the name of it.
Well, sparklers, I think. I can't remember what the name is. Yeah, but even that
turns very hot.
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen kids burn each other with it.
Right.
And, you know, you swing it
because
around.
somebody starts the game and they laugh when they burn the other child.
Correct.
And then they cry when they get burned as well.
And it needs to be disposed of, because it's pretty hot when it's finished.
Right.
And it's pretty hot, so you need to get disposed of that properly. So, you know, you throw it in some water or whatever. And again, if you're going to utilize fireworks, have the fire extinguisher available close by.
What, so, I'll take this in a dimension I don't think we've ever done before. Is there any concern that there may also be online scams with regards to fireworks, selling all kind of random, I don't know what?
Well, I mean...
Because, I mean, it's one thing where it's already difficult to regulate the stuff that the actual importers, that at least they are technically proper products.
Correct.
But then what if, because scratch bombs are illegal, right? So what if somebody's like, well, I could get you scratch bombs.
Yeah. Well, I could see that potentially happening. And there is a possibility of the scams with marketplace and whatnot, where you go to purchase something and you get held up, and you know, you're robbed of your property, your money, your vehicle, and whatnot. So that's where the issue might actually lie, as opposed to being sold fake scratch bombs, fake fireworks.
I was not so much with regards to fake fireworks or scratch bombs, but more likely unregulated.
Right.
That might have, say, you know, you're expecting a scratch bomb to go pa.
Right.
And instead you get a scratch on that goes boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe depending on the material for the oh gosh, the fuse.
Yeah.
Right? If it's just some fly-by-night thing, next thing you know, you have something where I wasn't expecting it to go off that fast, and then you have someone with a mangled hand all over again, right? Or just the quality control in that situation.
We see those instances because we've actually had to visit hospitals where kids get injured, their hands get injured, and we have to go in to investigate.
And I mean, this might seem obvious. We have a caller, we'll take the call, but this last thing, it might seem obvious, but like say the grandmother who tried to throw the bomb back out of the car and her hand got mangled, right? If a child was in that position, the parents need to understand there's potentially no getting those fingers back.
No, correct. And then you're subject to and liable to investigation. We could, you could be charged for that.
Congrats, you just, you know, allowed your child to lose their fingers, and you're gonna have to be charged for it. I mean, that is the law. We have Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Good day. How are you?
I think I remembered speaking to the ASP about was the merit list.
Yeah.
And
Brent
the
Thomas?
other one with Thomas, Brent Thomas issue. The Attorney General last week, in his winding up of its debate, he identified that particular issue. And one of the things he said, he is a law-abiding Attorney General. And he said the judge made a determination and said the policeman abducted, and from his knowledge, abducted is part of a serious crime in Trinidad and Tobago called kidnapping. And he said he going to investigate those 3 policemen. He called out their name, and I'm not going to call back those names. We know them thing. It was a DCP, a current DCP, a lady, and 2 other gentlemen. And he said he's going to investigate. Now, the thing is, he has thrown the TPS under the bus with respect to complicit investigative arm of the state, which is the police. And he is also, from my advantage, calling out the police service commission for not wanting to do that. And he said the judge is the final arbiter in arrest, criminal, civil suit. And if the judge make a pronouncement, so be it. It is an easy thing. You have all the evidence there. So he's going to investigate. And this is going to be the 4th time. You had Erla starting it, and she was arrested. And I don't know where that gone. You had the PCA sitting on it, said they was going to investigate it. You have about 3 to 6 weeks ago, the new COP Govera say he's going to investigate it.
Yeah.
Now we have the Attorney General, because I suspect he realized the current COP hands are tied because the Police Service Commission is not doing as they have done before. When Erla Christopher was being investigated, tell her to take some time off. What I as the Fifth Estate, a armchair journalist, I would like to see the Police Service Commission take action. Likewise, the executive of the Police Service take action and send those people who the Attorney General identified that might have been complicit in this abduction, kidnapping, to go on leave so we could have a thorough investigation. Now, what the Attorney General is saying, that the whole security apparatus in Trinidad is complicit. And what is identified, there are several other instances where the judge has said officers need to be investigated. I could call one, the khaki officer who was involved in the Ismail case. All of those things, those are the officers that have question mark on. Those are the officers who might be in senior leadership place that must be thoroughly investigated. And if have to be disciplined, that is where my confidence in the police service will be well served.
Yeah.
The other quick one I want to do, the latest one we have where this minister has been rearrested. I'm going to throw a spanner into the wheel. The person who basically arrested him and went to the DPP was the head of the FIB. He has since gone. That person went to the DPP, and it's in the newspaper saying he has 23 witnesses, but he hasn't gotten statements from them yet. And the DPP, I don't know if he acted on that. 9 police witnesses, several other ones. That person from the FIB went as the #1 on the merit list developed by the POLSC. He was bigged up by the then Minister of Security, that is Fitzgerald Hines. And when it's time to vote, they say no way, he'll say. At that same debate, a then opposition member, who is now the legal affairs minister, asked the question, and he asked the question, was it due to a letter sent by the head of the PSB, a fellow by the name of Duki, to then another senior officer who is now the DCP of administration, not I, the mover. And he was basically, from my bachelor, was asking if there was allegations in that letter on the head of the FIB. And we put in all of that together and said, okay, you went to the DPP with 23 potential witnesses, you charged your man, he was acquitted and now he's charged. So all those questionable or question mark with respect to arrest, are they really serious arrests? I'll go and have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. Well, I don't know how much you could
Well, I mean,
speak on
he made
those
some
things.
points that I could speak on, but
okay.
Well, with the last point, he indicated that I believe he was speaking about the minister who was charged and re-indicted on the charge.
Yes.
And one, I don't understand why the matter was firstly dismissed or discharged.
Right.
So a matter could be dismissed or discharged depending on the circumstances. So a judge has the authority to dismiss a matter outright if they believe there is no prima facie evidence.
Apparently, the chief magistrate ruled the prosecutors presented insufficient evidence after the minister's, the then MP's attorney successfully made a no-case submission.
Right, so he made a no-case submission indicating that there is no prima facie evidence to prosecute him. But then the DPP's office, the body in charge of re-indicting matters, would have looked at the matter and instructed the officers, whoever is the investigator, to re-indict the matter. Or, relay the charge. So there is a process. So one, I am not too sure how it originated, how it was discharged. So once a matter is discharged, not dismissed, once a matter is discharged, it could be re-indicted very easily. And it depends on the circumstances. So if like in the case of the Ajipa matter these days, you're hearing a lot about Ajipa now, the state is given a certain amount of time to provide certain evidence to the defense and to the court within as I said, in a timely manner, and there's deadlines given. And if this is not done, the judge or the magistrate has the authority now to discharge the matter. And when you get your house in order, you come back, you relay the charge and whatnot. So it's not an outright dismissal. So you could come back, you could go back to the drawing board and you could look at what you have. And the DPP would instruct or give advice to relay the charge. And the other matters he brought up with the DCP and whatnot. At the end of the day, some of the officers he has spoken about as somebody finance officers in the TTPS. I think he referenced Mr. Smith, Assistant Commissioner Smith in regards to the Inch and Ishmael matter. This officer is a very hardworking, intelligent officer. And at times, without speaking on the particular incidents, and at times police officers may make errors. And there's nothing wrong with a body investigating police officers and correcting the errors they would have made. So whatever errors would have made or he alluded to in terms of the matter with Brent Thomas, or even with ACP Smith and Inch and Ishmael, and I believe that is the matter he's speaking about. If errors were made, and there is a body to investigate the police officers who made those errors, to correct the incident so it doesn't happen in the future, then so be it. We are always open and welcoming into investigations.
I guess, again, this is one of those situations where it's a bit unfair because it reached the point now where I feel, because it's wrapped up into the politics, some of these cases, right?
And instructions would have been given.
Right.
Yeah.
And the politics now, I think, to some extent, the benefit of the doubt, the public is like, we don't want to give you the benefit of the doubt no more. We don't want to assume. We don't want to just take your word for it, right? But now, because these are also police matters, right? Now the police have to face that scrutiny. And then, of course, there's also these situations about trust and confidence that puts the TTPS under similar scrutiny, not just having to deal with guilt by association with the politicians in this instance. Well, and when I say guilt, it's all speculation, right? So the problem is for the public to reach a point where they are satisfied might actually require actions and statements that might be beyond the capacity to be made, either at this point or maybe even when it, like you could, the evidence might say, actually come out and say, well, there's nothing really to see here, you know, based on the evidence, can't really do anything, there's no one to charge, there's nothing untoward. And the public will probably not want to accept it.
Right, and the perception would be you know, corruption, the perception would be whatever, but the thing is, the police service didn't cause this on itself.
Yes.
The police service, the laws were changed to affect the police service. It became political. The police service was an entity on its own. And then somebody changed the laws and said, you know what, we want to get politically involved.
I think also with the Brent Thomas matter, the bare bone structure of it more or less suggests, oh, well, somebody else above Susan Martin had to have been involved, right? The problem is, she is the highest ranked name that is known, and we know there's someone above her in this matter. We know she did not just do this on her own. This is not her having her own agenda. For whatever reason, somebody else put things in place, gave certain instructions, moved things in that direction.
And is it that she was criminally liable for what she had done or followed instructions about? So she followed instructions given by whoever. We don't know. We need to get the investigation to have done.
I think in that case, that missing piece, because the implication of the investigation being unable to uncover anything is that somehow she did go off on her own, in which case people might not realize, but that actually looks in a way worse, because that's saying, well, technically the system...
I highly doubt that is exactly what happened.
I know, but what I'm saying is, you know, it will in a way look even worse, because it's like, but this is not supposed to happen like this. How could you tell us that there is nothing to see here, but there needs to be someone that actually arranged all of this? You know what I understand?
I know, but and Nicola is alluding to the commissioner putting down his foot or sending somebody on leave. A deputy commissioner isn't disciplined by the commissioner. Right? Again, the deputy commissioner is disciplined or dealt with by the Police Service Commission.
And that's the other thing. I think people also need to understand that the political games is so, well, maybe let me not put it that way, but the stakeholders involved, it's a in a way, it's a not necessarily clear-cut reporting process. The head of the government is technically a boss, but he's not actually a boss that disciplines you, you know what I mean? Technically they select you, but they're not in charge of the process to select you. So it's a very kind of weird process to try to make it independent. I don't necessarily think that the public is satisfied that it's independent, and we have the negatives of, well, somebody else has to deal with a deputy commissioner.
It used to be independent because it used to be that the Police Service Commissioner used to be based on, it used to get promoted based on seniority. And now...
Well, I hate to say this, but promotions based on seniority hasn't necessarily worked out in recent times.
No, but they're trying to get the best out of your
not
staff.
just in the police, this is across the board, right? So, but also, I think, and this could go back now to where perhaps we need to really look into the system. Similar to criminal laws, there's a lot of things that might be obsolete, old-fashioned, and it's putting officers in awkward positions where it's like, well, we can't really explain some of these things. Some of it we're just not going to know. The service in and of itself cannot necessarily try to protect its own reputation because of whatever is going on, and we're left with the public that's disgruntled over it.
And hopefully, just like the AJIPA, it would evolve, laws would evolve to benefit society. And
see, the problem with that is, have you seen Parliament? Now,
no comment.
Yeah, there you go. Right, I haven't commented yet directly on it, but I'll say this. There was one instance where I'm like, hey, that sounds like an actual proper debate.
Right.
But, you know, that's going to be overshadowed. I will highlight it later in the week, but it's generally going to be overshadowed to the country on the bubble that happened. I want to go to the comments as we have the time now, even though we're kind of breaking into the topic, or we're switching gears. The UNC mantra, when UNC wins, everybody wins, to me can only be assessed at the end of their 5-year term. To expect such an outcome at their first budget or in 1 year is unfair criticism. The thing is, I wasn't necessarily criticizing potential results or lack of results. Rather, it was the fact that it was a similar thing to the police. You have to manage people's expectations sometimes and tell them, look, this isn't practical, this is practical, this is realistic, this is unrealistic. Because I think even the government has been willing to say, hey, be prepared, right? We can't give you rainbows and sunshines and shooting stars and bunnies and pots of gold and leprechauns. We can't give you everything. That's basically what the Prime Minister said. We cannot give everything to everybody, right? My criticism was more on having to be careful with the messaging and how people will interpret it. Because you might understand, hey, we can't necessarily try to give the be-all and end-all judgment now for now. But a lot of the public aren't. They're going to look at this budget. Some of them might not even wait to give the budget a chance to see how it unfolds. They will just do the armchair analysis, assume the worst, and want to criticize up front. So I wasn't actually speaking about what the results of the budget will or will not be, but rather how, when UNC wins, everybody wins, puts a level of expectations on this budget that you will deliver to us that might be unrealistic because certain people will not necessarily be able to interpret the messaging for how you interpret it. That is to say, the rights of the comment, right? So I get where you're coming from, and in fact, before today, I even pointed out there will be people who will be expecting the world from this budget. They will be expecting magical solutions from this budget because they have an emotional belief and faith in the administration. And it's not necessarily wrong to have faith in people who you believe in, but you do have to try, when necessary or applicable, to temper that with realistic expectations. Otherwise, it'll be a similar situation with the police. To some extent, some of these things, most of the TTPS, they can't answer with regards to Brian Thomas, because we already know some of those decisions were probably made above the TTPS's pay grade, essentially. The commissioner and all can't make some of those decisions that got that ball rolling. But it's the police that has to basically bear the brunt of the criticism, because what happened at the top is obscured. What happened at the top has been left in shadows and darkness, right? Left for us to speculate on, which is not good enough to come to a proper conclusion. Now, right, with that said, back to the topic at hand. We had concerns about fireworks safety. This is, of course, something that's ongoing. I think a lot of people, and I've said this before, this is a reoccurring topic, right? Or we have murders, and we have home invasions, and we have this, and we have that. Why are you so concerned about this? But I think the point is, you know, it's one thing to try to give people advice to avoid a home invasion. It's another thing to tell people, hey, don't put an explosive in your child's hand for them to blow up in the face.
Because we are seeing the dangers of using the explosive, what we call it fireworks, in a closed setting without safety measures in place. So we want the members of the public to take as much precautions as possible.
But then the other thing, and I do wonder if, to some extent, this could be youthful exuberism, in between Diwali and Christmas.
Yeah.
There'll be random fireworks just going off.
Yeah, and I've actually seen, you know, I grew up in a village in East Trinidad, and we had bamboo, the bursting of bamboo, and I actually saw a relative of mine, his eyebrows disappeared.
I mean, thankfully that was the extent. I was bracing for something more severe.
Yeah. I mean, it caused some harm, and thankfully he learned from it, and he no longer did it again, so it never happened again.
Because it's one day when, all right, everybody gather around, we have the kids, we get some fireworks, Diwali, woo, Christmas, New Year's, woo. But in between...
Yeah, and then you want to be careful, not just with the fireworks, you know, even with the diyas, you know, you want to be careful how you have your kids lighting the diyas, you know. Last year I went to Felicity, we took some kids to Felicity, and we drove through the lighting up of the streets and whatnot. And they were very interested in lighting the diyas, so we had to be very careful because there were streets that allowed you to come in as a spectator and light dias.
Right.
And I took them and they lit the dias and whatnot, neighbors and whatnot.
I think we just kind of underestimate. At the end of the day, it's a small flame, but it's still a flame.
Right, and
right?
they used the candle. They were and we had to make sure they were very careful.
Yeah.
As to how they lit the dias on the streets.
Has there been any reports? I haven't necessarily heard of this of any fires being started because of any.
Not necessarily. Not dias.
Okay,
candles,
so at least.
Yeah.
Right.
Candles in board houses in the night. Not necessarily kerosene lamps, but with candles.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, but there is a electronic there.
Yeah.
Locally, somebody apparently their own version of a water-activated LED. I think it's an LED or electronic there.
Right.
Right. And because it's water-activated but based battery-powered, it is built to be waterproof, so it's element-proof.
Okay.
And then since there's no open flame, children can't burn themselves. They can't fall onto dry grass. They can't fall onto a carpet if for whatever reason you decide to have a day over carpet and the like. So less risk. I don't know what the price is, but something that people could explore, something that'll be a little bit safer.
Yeah, that'll be excellent. And you know, persons, it's a religious time, yes, but it's also a time for family to come together and enjoy the holiday. I think it's next week Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
I guess we could close out that discussion with this, and I do think we may have broached this subject during the Christmas period.
Yeah.
Just because it's a holiday period, and maybe time's gone by, you would have thought, oh, well, it's fine. We could open our doors.
Yeah.
You know, we could be more, you know, yes, it's nighttime and we light the dias and everybody's lighting the dias. That doesn't necessarily mean that they might not, because we're at a time where I don't think anybody could say we're going to predict exactly what criminals are going to do.
No.
That doesn't mean that criminals can't decide, hey, you know when people will be really vulnerable? When they open their doors and they want to all be outside, lighting theirs, and the children are there, and, you know, we could maybe ambush a couple of people and get away with something now.
Yeah, well, we had cases like that before, especially around holiday times, including Diwali. So, you know, people open up their homes, they invite persons to come in, have parasite and whatnot, have food and whatnot. And when I went to Felicity, it was actually an open situation where people were just going from home to home. There was actually tourists. I remember there were some yachties from the yacht club.
Right.
And they couldn't speak English, but they had a translator. And they happened to be on the same street as I and the family. And the translator, I spoke to the translator. And he was asking questions. For Trinidad, he knew nothing about Diwali.
Okay. They got the best guide, I guess.
Yeah, and he was apparently he worked at the club, and he just took the opportunity to bring them across. And they were amazed.
Yeah.
They were doing TikTok videos, and we explained to them what Diwali was, and they were amazed that, you know, that people were going from home to home, and they're sharing food and celebrating. And, well, we had to supervise the kids because there was a number of kids, and there was the fireworks, of course. So we had them using these sparkle, whatever, and these little small things to throw on the ground. And that was it. And there was some other kids there, and they all intermingled, and it was really a nice family setting. And, you know, so there was opportunity for criminals to have entered homes, entered the temples, and wherever.
It doesn't have to be big crimes. It could be, oh, my something small is missing.
Yeah.
Some cash I had on it.
Right. So in any case, take as much precautions as necessary, especially around this time when you're inviting strangers into your home and whatnot.
I almost feel bad bringing it up because it seems as though there's a more cynical view of Trinidad and Tobago now.
Right.
Where, because we still want to have that sense of openness friendliness,
and
being welcoming.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side,
you have to be very careful.
Right, given past events, have we lost something? Is it that, you know, we've grown too big now and we weren't necessarily careful? Like, I don't understand that now it's 2025. We just can't be necessarily the same unassuming, friendly people.
Yeah,
you know.
well, Trinidad
Now we have to
is-
kind of look at everybody cut eye.
Yeah, so Trinidad is that, like, just like in any society that became developed, you will see that, you know, long ago you could have intermingled with children and, you know, you had fun and you know, you play with them and whatnot. But now you have to be so careful because you don't know who is who. You want to be, and parents have become very careful when it comes to people approaching their children, approaching their relatives, especially if they're minors. So you have that apprehension. So we're moving from a state where everybody was everybody and it was a family and whatnot. And they trusted people. So you still have cases like that. You have cases where, especially in rural districts, you have cases where they trust everybody.
Right.
But then as they are developing, as the society becomes more developed, they become less trusting. And they are very careful who they bring around their children, who interacts with their children and whatnot. So you're seeing that loss of trust among members, and because of the crime situation.
Well, I don't know if it'll be reversed if the crime situation is reversed, if it'll be reversed fully. And that may be unfortunate, or that just might be the price of progress. I don't know, like to what extent does that tear away a little bit of the fabric of what it means to be a Trinbagonian? You know? And I guess there's sometimes I say, you know, the old time days were not always, you know, gold and bright and cherry and perfect.
It was comfortable, it was nice, it was trusting, it was family oriented, it was lovely.
I mean, the memories of my childhood, of the nation, and the 80s and the 90s, right? It doesn't feel the same now. Same thing for you?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's it. We're going to end the conversation there. Budget day today. Maybe it will be a short presentation. Who knows? I mean, at the very least, we get to see a new presentation style, a new thought process, a new strategy, perhaps. We wait with bated breath. This is going to be an indicator of things to come for probably the next 5 years, maybe even the next 10 years, but that relies on other things to fall into place. We can't necessarily predict just yet. But until then, I know there'll be a lot of people who will probably be scared of the implications of the budget, because as the government said, I didn't say it, they said it, right? You can't please everybody. You can't give everybody everything. Hopefully, it's not so much that there will be milk and honey for everybody, but rather a path, a goal to work towards for everybody that will eventually allow for everybody to rise up. The trick is how much pain we're going to have to suffer and endure between then and now. We'll wait and see. Perhaps they do get something really creative out of their hat and amaze us all. And you know what? As much as I don't necessarily expect that to happen, and I'm not going to tell you to hope for that to happen, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and maybe we get a miracle. Something dropping down from the sky to ease the suffering, but still be responsible, sustainable. Allow us to lay a proper foundation for these next 5 years. With that said, thanks to the commenter, thanks to the caller, thanks to ASP.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Apparently there's a lot of traffic this morning. I did run into some of that myself, but it didn't affect me coming in on time.
On the highway this
I wonder. I don't know if it's just a random Monday. September, October Mondays, sometimes it is what it is. But hopefully, you know, you haven't had to deal with traffic, or you're not going to run into any traffic when you leave now. We'll see you tomorrow. Fingers crossed for the budget. Stay safe. Keep your hopes up no matter what happens. We'll figure this out. Bye-bye.
WESN.